Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, Episode 9. This is a chronicle of the developer's journey to making cool stuff. We are your host. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, Philly-based Coco Heads community. Coco Heads is a loosely based global network of meetups focused on the Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, and watchOS development. Coco Head's prime directive, or objective, is to help you elevate your own development journey. And with that, how are we doing in our AR journey for this season?
I like the idea of having a prime directive. And if our prime directive was to figure out an AR app idea, then I have been in violation.
I think everyone watching too much Isaac Asimov movies or TV shows.
So yeah, last time we're looking into AR, the metaverse, kind of jokingly, we're not really metaverse site, but we're really very interested in augmented reality, something that Apple supports probably better than anybody else, right? And I think there's going to be some interesting products on the horizon coming from multiple companies, right? So we were trying to do some research last time. We'll see how far we got. I know that, Kotaro, you've been posting a lot of stuff in the Slack.
If you allow Twitter's timeline, which to choose these things for you, you get a lot of opportunities to see a lot of AR projects out in the wild. That you wouldn't necessarily see on your own, based on who you followed. Again, that's kind of good and bad, but at least now that I sort of engage with AR content a little more, Twitter is presenting them more in my timeline, whether I like it or not. Having said all that, there's interesting hardware where everybody's trying to become the next AR glasses of choice. And the form factors are looking better and better over time. So, like for example, the Facebook one, there's a lot of indie ones out there. Building glasses that look bulky still, but are getting closer to looking like Ray-Bans than prior.
Are these glasses projects you're seeing the kind where it's a transparent transparent glasses you can see through, or are they ones where they're full goggles and it's a camera that's bringing in the outside world to your vision, or both?
I can't speak to a lot of them because, it's easier to have the physical device on your face to get that sense. Usually they're doing these glorified demos when you're seeing the promo videos. From
a POV perspective, from the first perspective. So it's hard to tell, because I know I've seen the rumors of kind of two different types of products that they're saying Apple might make, and one is the kind of goggles completely blocks your vision, right, and then uses cameras to bring in the outside world. And then you'd have the one that I think I've been thinking of, and maybe you have too for years, the idea of literal glasses with some kind of heads up display kind of in front of your face.
I don't know if it's just the limitations of the technology at the moment, where you can't. It'd be great if you can just sort of have the AR mode and then hot swap in a mixed reality mode, right? Or I'm sorry, a VR mode, right? In the same goggle without doing some kind of hacky trick, right? And this is my own ignorance, not understanding the technology deeply at all.
What's the biggest glasses device right now, that's mainstream, actually you can get? What's that? Isn't there one from some social media company?
Snap?
Oh, yeah, the Snap glasses, right? Aren't they the biggest one, or one of the biggest ones? Spectacles, right?
I mean, where...
Those are glasses. They're like sunglasses, and then they project, or whatever the verb is, onto your eye line, and they have little cameras in the corners. Yeah. That's what I imagine when I imagine AR. Not this hideous design, but I guess that might be in the eye of the beholder. Ooh, I just accidentally punned.
Wow, that's an accidental pun there.
I accidentally pun all the time.
Would you buy these spectacles?
If it depends on how expensive they are, I guess. I would like to try them out. I don't think I would wear them regularly because they look kind of ridiculous. But
I mean, they are proof of concepts. Like a lot of what you're seeing is proof of concept ideas. I don't know if I would actually want to see them in my face all the time. These are not practical. When you're looking at the demo,
they're also not available. They're not like a thing that you can buy right now.
they have the Spectacles. Yeah, they have Spectacles 3. That's not the one, the next gen.
I think those are just kind of a glorified camera.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's really any AR stuff going on with those.
So is there anything you can actually buy? I mean, most of these I've seen are basically cameras. Like I saw some kind of Ray-Ban ones that I think just have cameras in them. They're not like, I don't know if they're actually heads up or anything.
right? There's nothing like on one spectrum you have the Oculus Quest, which you can get for like $300, and that's all VR, right? And then, and so that's not. I mean, I don't know if there's one where you can have an outside camera to it, but you would never wear that outside.
I would say that there's this like version 0 of these things. It's kind of like these Ray-Bans, which are, and maybe like the earlier Spectacles, which are glasses that basically let you record things, take phone calls, post to the internet, post to social media or something, and that's about it. Like they're not really AR glasses. And then you have like this next gen Spectacles, right, which they're claiming gives you like this AR view of the world. And then you have, and that would be what people hope eventually some kind of Apple glass would be. And then you also have those fully immersive Oculus style, right, which if it's going to be AR means it has to bring it in through a camera system in order for you to not bump in your furniture.
I mean, my guess is that I think it would be much closer to the former, because, like, we always have to consider the battery life of these things. So, and I don't know if it's practical, right? In that sense of like,
well, I'm saying these are what I think exists right now. Like that's what these things exist in the world. Like there's like I'm calling them level 0, 1, and 2. I'm a nerd.
I feel like it's closer to like 0.5.
What I want is, of course, the Spectacles style, but like looking good. I want just regular glasses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's Ray-Bans, but not.
I mean, I see one from Apple Insider that they say won't come out till like 2025, which on some level makes more sense than that's probably the most practical thought pattern, because coming out, I don't think it should come. It would be smart to come out this year, even though that's what everyone's clamoring for. Like if they did it this year, it would be like Watch Series 0 all over again.
Or it'll be what everyone else is doing, which is like a dev kit. It's never meant for consumers. Like those Spectacles, the next gen Spectacles, are a dev kit. Like that's what, like Microsoft HoloLens, all of these things are all like dev kits because nobody knows, or whatever. Everyone's just trying to make content for these things.
So if we're gonna make content for them, make some kind of app, I'm just trying to narrow down. What do you? I think the next actual hardware product being available for you to buy as a consumer is gonna be more like the full goggle kind of deal. I think that's probably what Apple might release. I mean, that's what some of the rumors are saying, right? That like the first version is going to be this, and that kind of thing would be more for your sitting at your desk kind of utility or in your living room. But you don't want to be walking around with that, right?
I mean, it doesn't have like one that's strapped like right in the center of your head, right? Versus it's mostly all like I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's like as if if you use the Apple Sports Watch material or and then you added like a huge transparent goggle to it, almost like a ski goggle, which I can't imagine it being much more than that feels more like a dev kit than it does an actual product.
Yeah, Apple doesn't really release dev kits though so much. Early on in a product cycle, but then like months before a product.
The only time I mean, they've done it for like what any chip related product, right? So like the Intel transition, and then now with the M1 transition, they had dev kits. In that case, they had like a modified M1 Mac, M1 Mac Mini that you could use. So I can't imagine them going like, especially for like a big zero, like big, like if they want to have the same type of like iPhone release, even Apple Watch release was pretty much like a big spectacle, right? Similar spectacle in that sense. I wouldn't call it as game changing as the iPhone in that sense, but they definitely gave it the same type of release uh, spectacle, I guess.
The rumors here on Mac Rumors have it being more like the first kind of headset being a focus on gaming and streaming video and video conferencing, and more like an Oculus style thing. And that sounds plausible to me. That seems like the thing that's technologically the most feasible for a consumer product right now. And I could see some utility in that, especially if you're working from home or something and you want to have a more immersive experience with your useless meetings, instead of Zoom.
I mean, is it really like a game changing experience if we're just talking about meetings? Like, I get this is early days, but it just strikes me as like, was it a solution looking for a problem?
Yeah, possibly. Well, see, that's the thing. So the technology that Apple has built into iOS and iPad OS for AR stuff is actually really good, and you can imagine all kinds of really neat applications. And they've demoed a bunch of applications as well. And there are actual products in the App Store you can buy, you can use, but they're all kind of limited because you have to use your phone. Like they're all very aspirational. Like you can imagine this would be so much better if I could just wear glasses for it. But there is a whole category of apps that are using this technology in ways that make more sense with the current hardware. Like I always think of I guess it uses the APIs, the apps that kind of track an athlete's movement or something and give them feedback about what they're doing, or the apps that you can use as part of a recording, creating like a video, creating a movie. We can record like a 3D environment, or put a person into a virtual world for purposes of like recording stuff. They did that as demos, right? Where you can, and they had the occlusion stuff, so you can be blocked by a virtual object. And the real reason I would do that right now is because I wanted to make a movie, or I wanted to have a game, or I wanted to have a live video conference or something with someone, because I'm not going to just walk around with my phone up in the air doing that.
I mean, it's actually kind of nice. It might be actually a good idea for storyboard blocking, or so like you can, instead of having to like draw or something, maybe you can go on set, figure out, maybe like put know where maybe like a 3D asset's going to be in the film, and then like just test it in like with an iPad, just kind of like look around. The iPad would act as your camera, maybe take a snapshot and then add it to a storyboard or something. Something of that nature, where you're just trying to like block out your scenes. But you want to make sure like maybe this prop would be better here, and you had like a virtual stand-in just to see how that might look. It's a hard challenge when you're building solutions for a product that doesn't exist yet.
That's the whole issue with these AR, the AR APIs for years now. Every time Apple updates them, it's like, oh, that's really cool, and they come out with some great demos at WWDC. But then you sit down, and you're like, well, what am I going to actually make that's useful to anybody right now? And there's products, but just not a lot.
It will be telling to figure out, or to see like next WWDC what they add to AR. Like sometimes you're noticed like in SceneKit or SpriteKit, they would completely stop development of like any new features. And as a game developer, that was disheartening. Like maybe after 2 years of work, then they sort of slowed down dramatically in what they added to SpriteKit. And then you realize, oh, it doesn't have, this is as good as it's going to get for a long while. They've moved on. And I think that's the challenge.
I've heard that about SpriteKit, that it's kind of been neglected.
it's tough because it's trying to compete with an industry that's like they're constantly updating, literally like every 1 to 2 weeks. There's like a new, you know, dot, O001, update to their builds. Like they're constantly updating and refining their engines.
Yeah. Well, in terms of gaming on iOS, 'cause that is one of the areas that augmented reality seems to make some kind of sense. If you remember, what was that Pokemon Go craze? Kind of an early example of that. I don't even think it used ARKit, right? At least at first. I don't even know if that existed at the time.
I don't know what engine it uses, but it probably uses some version of like an AR, something called AR Foundation. Well, okay, so like in Unity they have something called AR Foundation. I don't know what the equivalent is on Unreal Engine, but like basically it's just a way so that if you're doing it from Android or you're doing it from iOS, it knows to call the right APIs. And it's kind of doing that under the hood. But the funny thing is, I think like if you had it on AR mode, right, when you're battling these Pokemon, like it actually takes out so much battery life there. It's like why like it sucks more battery life, so it's like don't turn that mode on.
I mean, I know this was years ago and there was lots of stories about it, but I still remember craze where these kids especially were just walking around middle of the night all over my town. It got so bad that at one point we were having concerts in the middle of town. We did that in the summer music series. So I was dropping bait in the middle of town square just to like attract the Pokemon Go players. So, like we get more people to come out, and it really worked. Like some people would show up. Like, it was one of those things you could drop in the game. It was very funny, and I remember one time this really made an impression on me.
Did you pay Pokemon money for that?
No, I had like a free one, so I just used that. But the thing that made the strongest impression on me is that there was one time I was coming home from the city really late, and I fell asleep, and I ended up missing my stop in Jenkintown. Ended up on the next stop down the road, like Noble Station, so it's a little bit of a walk. I had to walk all the way back home, and on my walk, and we're talking like midnight or something. I think it was on a weekday. There was just all these teenagers. It was in the summer, so they didn't have school. They're like all walking around with their phones, like trying to catch Pokemon at like midnight.
Oh, geez. Have you been to Ocean City during that craze?
No, I saw videos of this kind of even bigger, huge crowds of people. But it was an early example, though, I think, of how this kind of technology can be so immersive and so like appealing that you can get people to just literally walk around in the middle of the night and have huge crowds, and that really got me thinking about this space more. Thinking this is actually has something to it, at least for games. Games is a great example, but there's something to it. It's not just it's not just like a demo. It's not just a good tech demo. There's some good stuff in there.
Sure, it's not just Pokemon.
Well, yes, okay, a lot of it's Pokemon. Yes, that you can do it.
I mean, it is kind of funny. It's almost like when you talk about bait, right? There's literally like a school of young teenagers running towards the spot.
But there's lots of lots of been Pokemon games, but I think the play loop is what the novelty of that play loop.
Yeah.
And it lasted long enough that it wasn't just like a flash in the pan for 1 week. It was like a flash in the pan for a couple months.
I mean, it's still going. Like I know friends who are still playing that game to this day. So I think that's kind of funny to observe.
We're not really thinking about a game, are we? Or game product?
No. I'm thinking much more utilitarian than that.
Yeah. But you've recently been doing more game stuff, right?
Oh, yes. Nice transition.
I'm great at the awkward transition.
Awesome. Yeah, so right now there is something called Global Game Jams that's happening. It used to be, it usually is a 48-hour game jam, but because of the state of the world, we're allowed to sort of create certain type of rule sets. And in our case, for the Game Mechanics, which is a local game meetup here in Philly, which I'm a part of, they decided to do a 10-day game jam. So originally I was just going to be there as sort of like a moderator and just somebody that would help out if anybody needed it. But like a lot of game jams tend to happen, you gotta get pulled into like the vortex of like helping construct teams to do the jam with. So I can't speak to, I don't think I could say what the theme of the jam is, but well, the fun thing is like the team needed usually you would get an idea what the theme is, and then um, you kind of then start to form your team around the theme. Like you start thinking about ideas, thinking about different concepts, and then you would um, then you would kind of go off and build a prototype basically within the time constraint. And we're trying to do it in the spirit of 48 hours, but 10 days. Some people have more time, some people have less time. The way you plan a game jam or making a game jam is dramatically different with a 10-day limit than a 48-hour limit. Because 48 hours is like a compressed set of time. In a traditional sense, normally you would get together in one space. And the theme is announced. You would form teams in that 48 hours, and then you would spend a ton of time together in a compressed time and space to build a game. So maybe you have somebody doing the artwork, somebody making the level, somebody doing the mechanics of the game, somebody making music, and you would all be working in that space, and hopefully you get some sleep in between that time. But what ends up happening is like this is like an experience of like you crunching to the end. And if you don't plan and scope this jam correctly, you might end up like in a mass crazy rush to the finish line. But at the end of the day, when you finish this prototype, it's a bit euphoric in a weird way of you seeing your baby, if you will, and it's running and it's doing things, and you had thought of this idea just 48 hours before, and you were just like, wow, this thing exists. It's pretty amazing. The interesting thing about it, right? Like, I don't describe myself as a game developer, more of a hobbyist, but I do find it to be interesting. Like, I've done certainly over 20 game jams. And over those period of times, you learn slowly what works, what doesn't work, obviously. But I guess it's kind of like a weird process and journey. You get better at planning your game jams. You get better at recruiting, or if you have people and whose skills would blend well with you, who like me and Aaron have done a few game jams together. You've helped a lot with the Puck Striker game and the fighting game one we did a while back. And both were different challenges for different reasons, but they also helped. They oddly enough they do help with maybe your portfolio. If in our case, with the game, the iOS game we built, that was very I don't know. I think it was a 2-week game jam, but basically it was a very simple air hockey game that required 2-player interaction, understanding multi-touch. It's not more complicated than glorified Pong, but you're also trying to like juice it up to make it more interesting than it actually is.
I like the game, the Puck Striker game. You made it pop. It was a lot of particle effect.
Yes, we made it. The interesting is we had a sound designer, Alex. Shout out to you, Alex Cole.
That was like the polished jam or something. It was like make the most polished game
of something simple
with the simplest mechanics or something. Yeah. That was kind of the point. Of the jam.
Yeah. So we had like voice acting. We had he went to an actual arcade and recorded the I guess the air that comes out of the air hockey system. He did a lot of work to make the sound like pop as much as it did. And that's kind of like the funny thing about games, right? Like I don't think people understand and appreciate the fact that sound is a tremendous part of what makes a game unique and interesting. Like you might not ever played the Super Mario game, but you remember the song and the ding, like the coin bump and whatever. Even if you've only seen or played the game once or twice. So it adds a level of polish and a level of experience that people sort of pass aside, especially in game development. So a lot of times I'm like, when I form a team or when I'm around a team, I'm looking for a sound engineer.
There's lots of games that that sound design is not only just iconic, but it like kind of saves the game. I mean, without it, I think it wouldn't be nearly as fun of an experience. Like even Super Mario Bros., which is a great game mechanic, I'm not sure that I would have found it as enjoyable without all those iconic sound effects.
I mean, there's all sorts of cheats I find that works
creative
really
cheats.
well. Yeah, in the sense of like, oh, if I add, and that's kind of where the pop comes in on some level. Like sometimes when you're loading, a screen, you need to provide some level of something interesting. That's a good time to add like some story-based text or something to help make the transition easier for the player. I used to do, when I was taking classes at Art Institute, I used to do really sneaky cheats, because I didn't have a powerhouse machine. I had a Mac, and all the 3D tools, all the workstations were PC. The apps were in PC, and I hated the PC. No offense to PC, but like at that time particularly, I hated it because like it was my work, and I don't want to have to like do that at school. So what I used was an application called Modo, which was cross-platform for my 3D work, and then I would use After Effects. So normally, when you're a young up and coming 3D artist, you don't realize that you can export stuff in layers, right? So the diffuse layer, like, so when you render a scene, you can render in layers. So you can render the background, the foreground, and then like, okay, like I want the occlusion map, I want the depth map, I want the. So one of the tricks I would do is I would only, if the camera was static, right, I only needed to render the background once, and then I would render the 3D character that had all the the hair particle effects and all the all the shine or whatever that I did as a diffuse map, occlusion map, and I make sure I do the whole scene with a depth map. So then I would take it into After Effects and then construct the the same scene over. And it was a little more work up front, but you had way more control. You can add a blur effect to the background when you needed it to in After Effects. You can change the saturation in each layer if you needed to, and then you can animate those transitions. You can add fog effects, and like After Effects had this really great particle system. If you knew how to utilize it, worked really well. So ended up, I would create these 3D scenes that looked great as a final product, but would have been hell to try to render in
the game engine,
in the 3D engine, or 3ds Max at the time.
Were these weren't interactive scenes, were they? Or they?
No. That was the beauty about it, was like
cutscenes.
And sometimes there'd be moments where like the render effed up, where I would be missing a frame. And you know what I did? I J.J. Abrams the F out of it and added lens flare particles for no reason. Just to hide the blemish. It was hilarious. I would do all sorts of things. I'm sorry, Tim, if you're listening, but I would do all sorts of things to obfuscate the flaw or the mess up somewhere in my render.
I mean, yeah, that's, you guys did any of these creative pursuits. It's kind of interesting how much the game design lends itself to that kind of thing, because you're making a lot of artwork, and so the code itself, you can use different kinds of cheats, but eventually it has to compile and run, right? But the artwork, you can hide a lot of imperfections in the artwork you do for stuff, which is great. It's how you get stuff done. But so you're doing this game jam right now. So are you actively participating, or are you just going to run it?
At this point, I am, but much more like the crew is big enough. Like I'm not doing any programming. Like I've sort of committed to like, no, I got too much things to do.
We got to figure out our programming.
Exactly, right. Like I want to make sure like I respect my time in that sense. Well, we haven't asked Aaron like how's his AR pursuits going.
Well, if you remember from last week, I said I would kind of go off of what you guys were working on. So.
Oh, see, that was smart. We failed.
So we failed, and thus Aaron was like, "Well, I got nothing."
I haven't touched the code, but I was just following what Kotaro was posting. So basically, it's just the blind leading the blind over here.
It's just I'm the one at fault here. That's fair.
Moving back to the AR app idea topic, I think I've seen a lot of good examples that you've been posting, Kotaro, and doing that and what we talked about last week.
I personally haven't found any real inspiration of what I would want to work on. I don't know about you guys, but
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard. The same ideas I've had for years just seem more useful. I don't know how much fun they'd be to build, but like anything that helps you to inserts stuff into a video scene, like you do with that's actually a thing they do in Instagram now. You do that's what those kinds of it's not implemented the same way, but the filters you can put on where they change people's faces or they add things, effects around your head or whatever. Like that kind of thing is really popular. And I've always wanted to be able to do that in a more, and I'm sure there's got to be an app that does this. Someone's tried to do this. But the idea of actually creating virtual sets that I think we've talked about this before. I know you and I have gone through, like that kind of thing is useful. I mean, I definitely see that as part of a very useful tool for someone making movies on their phone, for instance, not just as a game. I mean, because it's not really much different than like Pokemon Go. You're just inserting something into your environment, but then and recording the screen. I don't know. It's more of a tech demo maybe, but that's something that I was actually filming the other day, like a week ago. I actually thought, hey, that would be cool if I could have done that.
That actually is pretty useful in the sense of like, but I have to think that exists out there. But just getting back to your point, right? Like, can you do something where let's say you take your iPhone, you put it on a stand, you point it to you, and then you say, okay, now I want to just mask out and have something similar to what you have right now with your background, your virtual background, but maybe have an animation or like even like maybe like a TV screen, virtual TV screen, which that demo technically does. It's just not out yet. Or on one of the links I sent you.
Yeah, I watched that. I said that was really cool. So the demo for the listeners was a guy sitting on a virtual set, like behind a virtual desk with a big virtual TV screen next to him. That was showing some kind of video, and he could change the perspective in there, and he could have like light up lights on the set, kind of turn on and off, and could zoom out and zoom in. And then when he cut to what he was actually filming, it was just literally him standing in front of a whiteboard. It wasn't even a blank whiteboard. It wasn't even a green screen or anything. So that was actually very impressive. What was most impressive to me is how well he was inserted into a virtual environment despite not even having a green screen. You can see now, I mean, on our Zoom call here, we have our video on, and it doesn't work super great. The Zoom background for me, like it gets confused by my environment a little bit. But I was very impressed by that, and I guess was that using Apple's technology or just something else?
I mean, I can't speak to that because if they're smart, they wouldn't be dependent on core Apple technologies particularly if they wanted to be cross-platform. So I don't know where it's targeted. I wasn't particularly vigilant about it in terms of like figuring out what where the platform target's going to be.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it seems like Apple's platform is quite advanced in a lot of ways.
I mean, it's been out for long enough that I'm pretty sure whatever was there they probably have caught up at this point with ARCore, ARKit. I'm sure it's like 1-to-1. If one is doing something really interesting, the other one will eventually catch up. So it's a little ping pong effect happening in that sense.
Any of these links you've been sending make a strong impression on you? Like, oh, I would like to explore that idea in code.
No.
That's kind of the thing with AR. I mean, so we've been talking about AR stuff for years at Side Project Saturday, and we never actually land on an idea that is super compelling, which is funny.
They fall in the category of like funny bad ideas. Like these are bad app ideas, and they would be hilarious to make, but not necessarily a good product.
Well, are we trying to make a product, or are we trying to make an excuse to learn the APIs and the concepts?
I almost wonder, kind of almost going for a circle, that we need to do our own little jams to prototype. And we've kind of talked about this in the last one, about like just experimenting with these AR, spending the time to experiment with it. And I've done a few experiments, but just in general, collectively speaking, just getting a sense of the technology, how to implement it, what's good, what's not working. Take apart some of these tutorials and just really deep diving into like how it's implemented, and then kind of going back and presenting it to each other and saying, okay, I can see this mix of this combination of these tutorials working into this one particular cohesive product.
Yeah, well, that was the idea for this week, and
then we failed.
But it doesn't always work out. So that's still the idea, and that's fine.
Life got in the way, basically.
Yeah, life got in the way, but that's still a good idea. I think that's fine. The problem I think we still have is just like how there's just not a great solid idea. I think maybe we just need to think more in terms of not, as you said, not entire concept, not entire app concepts, but just like one aspect of the technology you're interested in. Like, how about putting a like a 3D rendered cup on my desk or something, something stupid like that. Like a lot of those demos you showed, you've been linking, were things like that. Like you bring up a card or something, and it gives you like more information in like 3D. Or
it'd be great to have something where you would go up to a painting and not have to remember a number or something. It would actually like give you an overlay of what it is, its historical reference, and maybe even like an audio like cue of a story about that piece. There is an API out there for the art museum. I don't know how well maintained it is.
The Philadelphia Art Museum, like, how cool.
That you can access, and you can kind of, and the problem with it is that it's not updated because like the numbering system of how these items are identified doesn't match completely within. There's like two sets of data, and one is related to room and the other one is related to the object, and nothing gets correlated or referenced between the two, so it's hard to really utilize it very well. That's what I remembered. It might have improved since that point, but they did actually have like an iOS SDK for that a while back. All that being said, it's a starting point. Like you can actually get, I think there was a way to get like the actual data set down, and then you can like utilize just that data set.
Do you have any idea? Oh, well, there's a GitHub, Philadelphia Museum of Art.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I remember back in the day it was private. I don't know if that's not the case anymore.
They have some public stuff, but they have a iBeacons one. They have a mobile framework for iBeacon. Yeah. It's just like iBeacon stuff, it looks like. I don't see anything about database.
I mean, one thing that would be great if I can just walk around and just have my AR glasses or even my phone just sort of like ping me as I get closer to a piece, and then tell me what the information about that piece is. Audio. Yeah, but
yeah, I remember using iBeacons in the past years ago, and I mean, now we're getting on another tangent. This is the tangent episode. But the iBeacons, the issue with the iBeacons is they're not super exact. So I remember one project that I think it was like an idea with someone else, and I think he decided to go with QR codes, because the thing about iBeacons, you can get close to them, but because it's our old radio, you can read kind of the how about how close you are, but it's not super duper accurate. If you have multiple beacons real close to each other that kind of interfere, like it works. If you're in a museum, it probably works better. But if you had a paintings right next to each other, it might not be easy to figure out exactly which one you're getting near. So, but yeah, iBeacons are pretty cool. I know a lot of museums tried them out. I don't know what the current status is because I haven't been to a museum in a few years now. Yeah. So I have no idea what the status is, but I always liked that idea too. I know they had I remember when I went to a museum many years ago, there was some kind of like headphones or something you could get in one of these museums I went to. It was a long time ago, and it would give you like an audio tour. And I don't know how they had that working, but it wasn't like an iOS app or something. But yeah, so something like that, like painting, like a tour of a museum or painting info.
Well, one thing that I think like a short term idea is to sort of take a phone, point to an art piece, even if it's on the computer, object detect that, figure out what art piece that is, and then return just some simple metadata about it in a UI, right? So it would, I think that actually has a lot of potential as a framework to build as a like an art museum.
Yeah, or a virtual tour. I didn't really. I was asked for ideas at work the other day, for things, and one of them was a virtual tour, and that was basically what I was thinking of. You go to certain landmarks around campus or wherever we are in the city, and yeah, if you can do object detection on like a statue, definitely do that. Then you can bring up metadata about it. You can have a self-directed tour around.
What you should do, those like signs that like look that have like information on them all over the city. You can have like a little diamond that places itself on top of it, so people know that that's something to look at. You go towards it, and then the diamond converts into like as it figures out what it is, it'll convert to the actual metadata.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. You don't even need to have different diamonds or whatever. You could just do it with the fact that it's a diamond and GPS, and that could be the two signals you need to figure out what metadata to get.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah, and so that's what I mean, like a virtual tour or a scavenger hunt, those types of things.
That would be pretty cool.
I imagine this has been done somewhere before, but I haven't seen like a big splashy product that does it. So maybe it's hard.
Well, it's hard when you got to do it with your testing on the phone all the time. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's always with the phone thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I could see it having some utility. The phone, especially because phones have gotten so big, it's more screen now.
Maybe our to-do list for this next week is to figure out. It doesn't have to be a diamond, but just put like a square on top of a landmark in virtual. So like when you walk outside, let's say, I don't know, just pick a landmark near you, like a GPS location near you, put a square right there, and see how that works.
You mean how to do it?
Yeah, just slowly build that project up. I can even build.
So you want to put a virtual icon on it? I was thinking you had like a physical icon, but yeah, you could do a virtual one.
Yeah, it's just trying to like identify like a spot, so then that way you can like then present the information about it.
I was thinking the two different ways of doing this. I was thinking you have a physical thing, like a sign, like an icon, like a diamond, whatever, that's literally there, and then that's what you use to recognize. Right? That's what I was thinking. Or now you're saying instead you have to you recognize based on your GPS and maybe object recognition, depending on what it is, and then you put like a virtual thing. See, I was thinking the other way around because I'm thinking right now we don't have glasses, so if you're walking around, you need to be able to identify the objects. The easiest way is to have some predefined, symbol that you can latch onto. You can recognize with the vision framework or whatever framework it is. But no, I like the idea. How about just it's like the common AR kit demo I see is pinning some kind of virtual information or icon or something on a physical object, like a card or something. That shouldn't be straightforward, right? Like there's actually demos for it. So we could explore doing that on a real location.
I can create it or somebody can create it. I'll just create a GitHub project and we can all test.
I always like the idea of it, but I don't know if it works well with the phone, but those virtual cards, like look at someone's card and then get all the information about them.
Yeah. There was an example of that from designcode.io.
Really? Oh, cool.
So he had some really nice looking ones that he did that I need to download. Well, I still have the subscription. But yeah, his was really nice. I don't know how they hold up because they were old versions, but definitely it's a starting point for what we're trying to do.
For an AR business card.
Yep. Now we're hitting up against time, so I want to make sure we kind of wrap up and
Yeah, how do we wrap up this tangent-filled kind of mess of an episode?
we wrap it up by saying what we're going to try to do by what there should be an expectation of what we do by next podcast, which is building a very, 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 very basic prototype of a location-based AR kit, like drop pin, basically.
Yeah, so
and
of a demo.
maybe overlay some metadata on that spot, just so we can be verified. Like, okay, this is the spot of such a place.
Yeah, you'd think the Apple Maps would do that already. I don't think it has that capability, right? Like it doesn't in the Street View world.
I mean, this is the whole journey of whether or not this is just this has already been built and we're just on we've just sort of done a weirdy silly.
It's fine if it's already been built.
Yeah,
we haven't built it.
Right, we haven't built it, and so the journey's new to us.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get an understanding of the concepts and specifically the APIs, but more importantly than the APIs and Apple on Apple's side is the concepts about this, and what does it mean to have an augmented reality app, and what kinds of things can it do, and just explore that space because I think it is going to be a thing. I mean, there's so much smoke that there's probably fire there about hardware. And if Apple releases some hardware, it's not always guaranteed they're going to be successful, but there's a good chance. And there's already a lot of other companies working on hardware and dev kits and stuff. It's something that is worth looking into since we are developers in this space.
I mean, we're always told in the Apple space, there's always a line, go where the puck is going, not where it's been. Some version of that line, but basically we kind of are reading the tea leaves, and that's basically what the tea leaves are saying.
Yeah, exactly. So they're saying we're all gonna be wearing iPhones strapped to our faces.
I just realized there's so many phrases here that I'm saying.
You're just a fountain of great title ideas.
These quotes, I have no idea why they were made. It's like, who cares about tea leaves? Doesn't make any sense.
Reading the tea leaves, because that's a thing. You ever saw someone read tea leaves?
I know that's a thing. No, but yeah. Aaron, do you have any other thing you want to say, or what you might want to do for this next 2 weeks?
I just want to work on something together with you guys, not just because if we try to do this, go off on solo projects, I don't know if we're going to get anywhere.
Which is why I'm going to be building the Get Up project.
Okay. A goal is very simple. Put an icon or something on a physical object in a physical place. Like it could be in your house, or it could be outside, whatever.
Before we head out, do we have any sponsorships we should be plugging? Any apps we should be plugging?
Do we have a non-sponsor sponsorship?
So I have a pitch for a good friend, Russell, at happyscale.com.
I was literally thinking that.
Happyscale.com, at least the pitch here is dieting is hard enough. And when you work hard, hop on the scale and see the number that's higher than yesterday, well, that's just not fair. Happy Scale smooths out your daily scale weights and makes insights predictions of when you hit your goal. Join the hundreds of thousands of users who use Happy Scales to tame the scale. Download at the App Store. That's literally the quote from the website.
I'm a longtime user of Happy Scale. I have recently been watching it go up in the wrong direction, but it's been going up in a nice smooth, smooth line. So it's
Well, it was the holidays. I mean, you kind of have that excuse.
It was going down for a while. The whole smooth scaling thing is actually a great idea. So he has no idea we're talking about this. And if you're one of our 9 or 10 listeners, whatever, listening to this, is a great product. And I've been using it for years. And the actual algorithms he uses to smooth it actually is helpful because your weight will fluctuate. And if you're like me and you're obsessive about kind of capturing your health data, and you weigh yourself like every day, those fluctuations can be rather dramatic, like they go up and down, up and down. But if you look at his scaled or his smooth scale, you'll see over time you're trending in one direction or another. And when the trend's going down, that's of course preferable. But if the trend starts going up, then that's a nice signal that you need to make some kind of change. So I find his app very useful, whether I am succeeding or failing in my goals of weight management. It's actually a really great product. I like it. It really is the only scale app that I've been able to consistently, or weight at tracking app that I've been able to consistently use for, I think, years. Good for him.
All right. And we're not paid on this sponsorship, by the way. We just like to support our good friend. Awesome app for us. Cool. Well, that is it for this episode of Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight. If you have any questions or emails or whatever, just I don't know, post it in the comments.
Comments on what?
Because we don't have an email.
We don't have any comments. It's a podcast. Just try to look us up on Twitter. I don't know. Tweet at Philly Coca.
Really? Yeah. Do that.
Don't worry. We'll do better next time, people.
Yeah, well, it's always a work in progress.
Any of these links you've been sending make a strong impression on you? Like, oh, I would like to explore that idea in code.
No.